All right, good morning. Our lecture today is going to be on project cycle, and the project cycle we are going to be looking at is something a bit small and simpler for our life. Last week we managed to finish what we call the project itself. We defined what is a project, we looked at what is a project, and we came to understand what are some of the things that we need to do in a project. And realizing this, we looked at the definition of a project, which we realized is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product at the end of the day. Meaning at the end of the day, the project must die. So in looking at this, we went further and looked at the project as with a family. And we said it starts from planning, it goes to programs, then it comes to project, and then it comes to work, and then after that it comes to tasks. We finished our lecture by looking at how the projects comes about. And we looked at the classifications of projects. We said we have so many projects. Somebody will say a poultry farm is a project. Yes, it is a project. Banking is a project. Yes, it is a project. Building a house is a project. Yes, it is a project. But what we are looking at now here is because of so much when it comes to projects, then we cannot have all these as listed as types of projects. And therefore we ended up classifying the projects. So in the classifications of projects, we can classify projects into four main parts. We classify projects into four main parts. And the four main parts that we used in classifying a project included that we can classify a project in accordance to the number of implementers. You are either an individual owner of the project or you come as a group. Number of implementers. We went further and said that we can classify projects according to the formalities involved. You are either dealing with a formal project or an informal project. A formal project we're dealing with here is those projects that proposals are written and they are funded. And they have got an explanation how the money and everything is going to be managed. And then we came to the third one where we looked at the purpose. Projects can be classified according to the purpose. It is either an income-generating project or an non-income generating project. And lastly, we said we can classify projects according to time they take. It is either a long-term project or a short-term project. For an example, I can have a project of having a special lunch for my family today. That's all. It is a short-term project. But I can have a project of going back to school to study. It might be a long time project. Now, today I want us to look at this topic, that as you think of projects, there must be a place whereby they start in life. There must be a place whereby projects start in life, and then there must be a place whereby they die. So we are trying to look at when do projects start, and what happened here until they end. What happens in that process? From the start of the project until the end of the project, what comes to our understanding that this is what? A project. So looking at this, we are going to look at what we call the project cycle. We are going to look at what we call the project cycle. Just as any other thing, you will agree with me that a circle is something that goes round. That's it. It tries to go round. And it's going round. It is trying to give us that this is something that it has to have a start and end. And in this class, you are going to agree with me, or you are going to understand with me, that though we have all these projects in place, they always start from somewhere, and they come and end from somewhere. Now the question is, what happens here between the end and the start? What happens? What is it that you're trying to look at between the end and the start of the project? And that is why today we are going to look and understand what really happens in projects that makes them stand alone and makes them, as we'll talk about it, that it creates a unique product. After creating that unique product, what happens? After the unique product creation, what is really going to happen in a project? Now, we start by looking at the definition. What does it mean to talk about project cycle? What does it mean to talk about project cycle? We can say a project cycle refers to the recognition within the project process. Recognition within the project process. It is recognition within the project process. The question is, when we talk about the project is going to start until it ends, you and me, who are the project managers, do we recognize what happens here? If you can recognize what happens between the start and the end, then we are talking about you are a good project manager that is going to manage. And when we talk about you managing, we are talking about you managing and recognizing what happens within the project process. The project process is something that takes time. As we continue in the class, we are going to look at the project, and we say that when we're looking at it, we say that is a process. Now, when we look at, as we continue, we are going to look at why do you say it is a process. I'm going to take you through the 7 steps of what happens to make a project a process in this lecture. So as we continue, we say that somebody also defined that a project cycle is the sequence of phases. So this person is telling us it is recognition, but somebody is bringing that it is a sequence of phases. Just like when you're in secondary school, you realize that you're doing something called biology, and you're looking at, in the biology, you're looking at these animals. And one of the animals that you looked at in biology was the animal I can talk about is the animal of the housefly. Not the housefly, we can talk about the butterfly. How it grows until how it comes to an extent that it is now a butterfly. So when you look at a butterfly, you look at some things and then you say, this is really a butterfly. And when you talk about those phases, by the time it is larva, pupa, until it grows to the eyes. So when you look at the project cycle, we are looking at it that it is a project life is a sequence of phases that the project goes through. A sequence of phases that the project goes through. So if one can organize and understand the sequence of phases that one goes through, it's just like me asking you today, do you understand how to do this? For an example, if I'm supposed to cook for the first time, I'm a Kenyan, but the first time I came to Uganda, I could not cook matoke because I did not understand the sequence of the phases it goes through. Until up to today, I don't know how it goes to the extent that the matoke is now grouped until it becomes like posho-like. And that is where we are. A sequence of phases that the project goes through. The moment you understand the sequence of phases, then you'll understand what it means. All of you here are students. So you understand the sequence of phases that a student goes through. There's assignments, there's coursework, there's registration, and then there is what? End of semester exams, and that semester is done. So you must go through those phases that we need. And those phases is what makes us, us. Those phases is what makes a project a project. So long as I understand what happens when it starts, and understand what happens when it ends, and understand what happens between the end and the start again, then it means I am a good project manager. Most of the newspapers and most of the jobs they're going to ask you, they say that we are looking for a project manager who has got the knowledge of PCM. They're going to say we're looking for a manager with the knowledge of PCM. What does PCM means? PCM means they're looking for a manager with knowledge on project cycle management. And most of us will fail the job because we don't know what is PCM. But they're looking at what, for you to manage a project with them, they believe that you must have some knowledge on project cycle. So when you look at the project cycle, we go on by saying that if you look at this, for you to define project management life cycle, I'm sorry for not being online with you. That was the definition. We said that the project cycle refers to the recognition within the project process. The idea of development projects as the time-bound creation of physical assets led into time recognition of the phases. And the second definition we looked at is, we said that a project cycle, project life cycle, is the sequence of phases that the project goes through from its initiation to its closure. And I'm now here talking about what are the characteristics of a project life cycle. What are the characteristics of a project life cycle? And some of them is, we have that every project life cycle has got those phases. And number one, we are talking about the initiation phase. Number one, we are talking about the initiation phase. What happens at the initiation point? That there must be a start. So one of the characteristics of a project cycle is it has an initiation phase, which includes starting the project. Initiation phase. One of the characteristics, it has an initiation phase that talks about starting the project. And number two, it talks about the planning phase. The planning phase that gives us that as we think of planning, we need to organize ourselves and prepare properly. And thirdly, it talks about the execution phase. The execution phase. How are you going to implement things? So in every project cycle that you're going to manage, any project you're going to manage, these are some of the characters you're going to go through. And lastly, the termination phase. That as we talk about projects going on and we talk about project cycle, we are talking about looking at it from the start until its closure. And this gives us an understanding that these are some of the project cycles that we have. Some of the project cycles that we have can be listed or can be given to this understanding. I have two forms of project cycle that I'm going to share with you. I have two forms of the project cycle that I'm going to share with you. That we're talking about, number one form, the model I've given you there is, it talks about the project cycle. What happens in the project cycle? What happens in the project cycle? A project starts with that. But for us to manage a project, we are saying we must do what we call needs assessment. Needs assessment. It is a demand of the project cycle. It is something that we need from the cycle. Now, after doing the needs assessment, what happens? What happens along the way? Then you need to come and plan. So we go through the second stage of what? Planning stroke design. That project that you want, you have done the needs assessment, you have collected all the information that they need. And all of us, we understand that this is what is happening. So as we go through that and you understand that now you do planning and design, then the needs assessment, as we bring the needs assessment, it gives you the results of what we need to plan. And in the planning process, as you plan and you realize that something is not moving on right in the plan, what do you need to do? What do you need to do? You need to recognize that you're in project cycle. So as you recognize that you're doing the project cycle, if you have issues in the planning, you need to come back and check from the needs assessment. That for us to plan and design accordingly, if you have a problem or a challenge in the planning, I don't work on it here. I come back to the needs assessment and look at what was the results of my needs assessment. It is that result that will help me plan and design accordingly. Now, after you are being comfortable with the needs assessment and the plan, then you go to the third stage of what? Implementation. At this stage of implementation, what are you implementing? You are implementing what you have planned, you are implementing what you have designed. You implement what you have planned, you implement what you have designed. In this process of implementing what you have planned and implementing what you have designed, if you have decided that today this is it, and the whole group has agreed that we are going to implement, and our color or the end result of this should be green, and in the process of your implementation, you are not getting the right results. You are seeing yourself, you are not going green. You are going yellow, or you are going to a different color. What do? At that point, you don't need to come and correct things just at here. No, you need to recognize that you're doing a project cycle. In the recognition of the project cycle, you need to step up. You come back to the needs assessment. Look at the needs assessment report that you have. Is it in line with the plan that you organize? Yes. If it is in line with the plan that you organize, then correct the implementation. It all requires that whatever that is happening at any stage, needs assessment forms the base of the planning. Planning assessment will give you the implementation. But if there's a problem in our implementation as the project cycle manager, you don't go and correct the plan. No, you come and correct it from what? The needs assessment. You come and correct it from the needs assessment. And that's why we are saying it is called a project cycle. So in the process that you come there, and now you are okay, the needs assessment gives the right information to the planning and gives the right information to the implementation. Then you go to the third stage. And the third stage, according to this model, is monitoring. What are you going to monitor? You're going to monitor what you have been implementing. Am I on the right track? Are we achieving the right objectives? If you look at the activities we're implementing, are there activities that we say? Now, if these are the activities that we say, and this is the objective we are achieving, is it in line with our budget? If these are the activities have got resources that need to be done. So as I implement the activity, there's a budget I'm working with. So my work here as I monitor, I try to look at, I'm implementing this activity. The activity I'm implementing, it needs this resource. And the resources I have will give a feedback to the objective that we're finding. So at the end of the day, as a project manager, as you come to this, as you implement, and you come now to monitor, and you realize there's a challenge with our project, that whatever we are monitoring, we might not achieve what we need. Then what do you need to do? You need to come back to the project cycle idea that it has to come from the needs assessment. You cannot correct whatever is wrong here at this point. If you correct it at this point, then there must be a challenge here. And that's why we are saying it is a project cycle. So if whatever we're implementing, the activities we're trying to put in place are not according to the plan, the activities that we're trying to put in place are not according to the work plan, the activities that we're putting into place are not according to our design, what we design. The activities that we're putting in the workplace are not things that are budgeted for. For an example, we budgeted for a car, a double cabin for the organization, but we end up buying motorcycles and double cabin. Then what does it mean? It means there's a problem somewhere. Or we budgeted for a double cabin, and in the double cabin we budgeted for, we are not getting it. What does it mean? It means we have a challenge. Instead of buying double cabin, we are buying motorcycle. Then something needs to be corrected and understood. Now with this tool, it takes us to the fifth step, and that tells that now that you monitor, you come and review. In the review part here means call the teams into meetings. Call the teams into meetings. We are going to be having meetings, quarterly meetings, biannual meetings, annual meetings, monthly meetings, weekly meetings. Now, what are you trying to do? You are trying to review. What are you trying to review? You are trying to review what you have monitored. What have you monitored? You are trying to monitor what you implemented. What are you implementing? You are implementing what you planned for and designed. And where did it come from? It comes from the needs of the project. So as I start a project today, it has got a need. And that's why you find an organization has got different projects. Reason is they have got different needs. One organization can be handling HIV/AIDS, COVID-19, malaria, you name it. Girl child education. Why? Because every project has got its needs. And the project manager needs to know that every project has got its needs. So as you come through the plan, implementation, monitoring, until it reaches the review, he reviews, and at the time of review, if there's a problem here, he cannot fire people that you are not performing. No. He cannot do things that makes people get annoyed. No. He has to call the people into the meeting and retrain them. And as a point of their reviewing the project cycle, he has to come back from the needs assessment. He has to make sure that every now and then, as he think of the program, he has to bring the program to be understood by the people. He has to sing the song of the needs assessment, of the plan, of the implementation, monitoring, and the review. And then lastly, it gives you that after reviewing and everything is okay, you do what you call an evaluation. In this model, he has separated monitoring and evaluation. So at this point, as you go review, you are reviewing, and as you review, you evaluate. If there is a problem still in the evaluation, you need to understand that you're dealing with the project of recognition of phases, and that's the project cycle. We said the definition of the project cycle is recognition of the sequence of phases, or identification when you recognize the project steps that you're taking. Now, when you are evaluating, you are not going to evaluate the needs assessment. You are going to evaluate what you have implemented. What you have implemented is as a result of the plan. The plan is as a result of the needs assessment. For an example, if our project was to deal with the prevention of the spread of HIV/AIDS in Bugema University, that's the project. Prevention of the spread of HIV/AIDS in Bugema University. What are some of the things that you did? Now, some of the activities we had is distribution of the condoms, training of the youth, campaigns. Now, after we have all distributed this, we have done the trainings, we have campaigned, we come and evaluate. In the evaluation, we must make sure that what was the needs here is achieved. So most of the time, it becomes a project cycle, and this is why organizations are going to tell you, we need a leader who has got the knowledge of PCM. Why? Because after evaluation, what next? You need to join this to this. Now, in this part, the part that brings the evaluation and the needs assessment has been a problem to many. Why? Because most organizations, when they've evaluated at this point, the project is done, they want to write another proposal. Many organizations, this is what they do today, that after organizing an evaluation point here, after the evaluation point, the evaluation report becomes your base of what we call the needs assessment. So most of the time we use the evaluation report to give us another needs assessment. I'll give you an example. I was working with Adra Finland. In Adra Finland, we were dealing with something to do with the Ecosam Toilet. Ecosam Toilet. This is a toilet that is built on top of the ground, and as you build it on top of the ground, all the products, the human products, are separated. The urine goes to a different channel, it becomes a manure, urea, after some fermentation, and then the feces also go to a certain area, they become manure, because there's a way we used to train people. They use the normal ash that they use in their houses, and then that ash, when it is poured on the dung, it becomes dry, because the moisture is sucked out by the ash. So when the moisture is sucked out, it becomes dry like a normal cow dung. And many people never liked it, but the few that accepted it started using it. So when we were evaluating the project, we realized that we had a very serious issue, that people here had issues with their teeth in this area. Everybody, every home, there was a brown teeth. So in our project, as we were ending, we realized one of the major challenges of the people was the teeth. So the project of Ecosam Toilet, as we're finishing the implementation and evaluation, it gave birth to dentist project. They are going to work on their teeth. So we organized, we wrote a proposal, and we came up with a dentist hospital or unit. And in this dentist unit, we had everything being done. So people in the community could come at a subsidized, very, very subsidized fee, just to work on their teeth, and people started enjoying it. But this is how it grew. ADRA Finland came to Kenya to work as an HIV/AIDS project. So as they're working on HIV/AIDS project and sensitizing people, everything, they realized that the people that they're working with needed the vaccination, the VC, not vaccination, the voluntary counseling and testing. So in bringing voluntary counseling and testing, the project went and ended. As the project was ending of HIV/AIDS, we remember we were supporting them, and then we realized that one of the major challenges, they're taking medicine, but they don't have what? They don't have kind of food security. So in the name of training them how to take care, how to plant, how to do this kitchen gardening, that's when the Ecosam Toilet came in. So that they get the urine for urea, and they get the feces for the manure. So with all this, it started growing. And as this project was ending, we realized that the one common thing in this community was the teeth, the turning brown. And we realized it is because of the water that was salty. So as we tried to work on the Ecosam Toilet, we needed to beef it up with the what? The dentist area. And that is how it managed to pick. That is one form of a project cycle. Allow me to go to the second model of the project cycle that you have here, that majority will love to understand and majority will love to see. Why are we having difference in the project cycles? Why are we having the difference in the project cycle? Now, this one is more of a local form of a project cycle. It is so local and so basic that every person can implement it. And it doesn't need so much professions that we're going to have. But the second one I want us to share, somebody can ask that sometimes as you go on implementing a project, you can easily come and evaluate it. And that's the second form that you see on your screen. The second form that you see on your screen. And the second form says that you must start with what we call identification. Identification. Can you identify the project? The other one was telling us that it is needs assessment. But now we are talking about identification. What are you identifying? What are you identifying? So in this point, it tells us that the first stage in this model is the identification. We are going to look at the project design, we are going to look at the project planning and community development plan, and all this I'm going to take you through in details when you reach there. How do you identify a problem? We can use things like situation analysis. How do you prioritize our problems? We can use things like pairwise ranking matrix. I'm going to take you all through this in this class. Now, after identifying, in this model, it takes you to the second stage. And the second stage is called formulation. The second stage is called formulation. And what are you formulating? What are you formulating? And in this process of formulation, there is going up and down. In the process of formulation, you try to check. This is 1 plus 1 is equals to 2. Why? Why is it 2? Why is it not 3? Why is that in this project 1 plus 1 is becoming 3? So you try to run up and down. You try to run up and down in formulating. This needs to be fitted. I like the example of ladies that I can give. A lady will go to a tailor to make the clothes and will always keep on checking on the tailor. How far? No. When you're done with the top part, I want to test something. Before you finish, I want to test something. So the tailor will always come. They make appointments. They will make appointments. I like the idea of ladies when they're going for wedding. Men don't do it so much, but most of the ladies when they're going for wedding, they hire in clothes. They have what they call, they have routines that they have to take. That before the wedding, you must go for the checkup. The fitting, they call it fitting, that you must fit properly. So a lady will tell you, no, I'm going to see the person of the gowns. Why? Because I need to fit properly. That they want to do the last fitting. Every week they're going for fitting. Every week they're going for fitting. Why? Because they're formulating something. So in formulation, ladies and gentlemen, there are 4 things that happen. 4 good things that are happening in formulation. And number 1 is the outline design. In formulation, we have what we call the outline design. What are you outlining? Just list. Just list. You can come to your house today and then say, what will you want to eat? Son, give you that. Daughter, will give you. Wife, will give you. You yourself, you have. All of us have got outlined. We have outlined all our designs and our problems. I want to eat this chicken, daddy. Sweetheart, that's your wife is telling you, I want to eat this. Most of you, you have just attended Valentine. If you are taken out, fine. If you took somebody out, fine. But you realize it had its own design. And after that, after having all those outline design, all the list is listed, then you come to what we call appraisal. You start appraising. In the appraisal here is appreciating everything. You are going to the market. You have your 1 million. You want a laptop, you want shoes, you want clothes, you even want a car at 1 million. No. So because of all this, you start putting them down, and as you put them down, you relax. And in this relaxing and putting them down, then we realize that you are appraising. And in appraising, whatever you don't need or whatever is not a priority, you abandon. In this stage of abandoning, then you go to the 3rd stage of what? Detailed design. So in the detailed design, you have what you really need. You have what you really need. So we are all going out as a family, and we are all going to have chicken with chips. Remember, in this house, I was giving an example. The wife wants to go out, yes, but to eat chips chicken. The kid wants to go out, but eat what? Fish portion. The husband wants to go out and eat what? Chicken chips. The house girl wants what? This and this. So all of us, we come and we have all those things here at the outline. We start appraising. No, we abandon this, we abandon this. And then you have a detailed design. So all of us are going out at a specific thing. So identification here comes and is working with outline design, and outline design works appraisal. Appraisal, when you appraise, you abandon and accept, and then you have what we call a detailed design. All these are involved in the formulation of the project. Now, after going through that second tedious stage, you come to the 3rd stage of what? Implementation. Implementation. Now, at this point, you implement. I'll give you an example. If you're constructing a road, after implementation, you will easily go to what?
Evaluation. So in this form, they say that it is possible that somebody can come from implementation and just come direct to what? Evaluation. And from here, the person can generate new data for another project. But at the same time, that if you're constructing things like road, that after implementing the road, you come and what? Commission the road. You have heard of the president coming to commission such and such a road, coming to commission such and such an hospital, coming to commission. Then after commissioning, they make it what? Operational. You see the president opening a ribbon and saying that the project is now what? Operational. So when the project is made operational, we are saying at that point, the operational report can also give you what we call the other needs assessment. So that is the only difference with this model and the other model. That this model tells me that from implementation here, I can easily come back and evaluate, and after evaluating, I come and identify another project. But the same time it is telling me that after implementation, I can go on and commission. We have built a road, constructed a road, constructed a church. We come and commission the church or the road. And as we commission, we make it what? Operational. At that point, you cannot come and evaluate something like a road that it has no. No, because you don't know the tracks and everything. So it becomes direct what? Another, and that is what? Identification. Now, this leads us to the summary of our class. That the project idea, the idea of the project cycle has much value for project managers and serves as a useful basis for understanding the project. And for you to be a good manager, we are saying, for you to be a good manager, you need to understand that whatever the difference in most of these models, it depends, I don't know which project we're going to look at, but the difference in all these models that you're going to read, I've only given you 2 models. But in all the models that you're going to have, all the models that you're going to find out, that they have one thing, they have got phases. And the phases that they have, you will agree with me, must have the 6 common ones. That number 1, it will have something to do with what? Identification. Or needs assessment. You will agree with me, there is no way we are going to start a project without needs assessment or identifying a project. Number 2, that as you think of having the needs assessment, you need to be very sure that you need to formulate formulation or planning or designing. That's common. That as you think of a project cycle, there must be identification and there must be an aspect of formulation. You either plan or design. And in the formulation part, that's why we have said that you have everything. You must appraise, abandon what you don't need, and have a detailed specific thing. Number 3, they all have what we call implementation. That after formulating or after planning, then we need to implement it. You need to implement it. And number 4, we have what we call commissioning. Other projects, they say that we have what we call monitoring. With them, they call it monitoring. And then after monitoring, commissioning, you have the 5th one, and that was what? We have it here as operations. The first model was having what we call review. And lastly, all of them have got one common thing, which is what? Number 6, which is evaluation. And this gives us a very clear thing that every project must have those 6 common stages. I've given you the notes to explain the difference in the models, which I've also tried. That the first the cyclical form retains the idea that project development should be a learning process. And that's why I was telling you that from this, if you have a plan in the implementation, you don't come direct to correct it at the design. You come to the needs assessment, come to the project design, and then come to implementation. It is more of a learning. That's the first one. It is more of a learning process, and it helps us move. And lastly, the second one, this version of the cycle highlights the various stages related to planning and implementation, but often failed entirely to include operational stages. And that marks the end of our class today. Any question? Any question, ladies and gentlemen? Any question? Yes, Fubi.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, mine is on the second cycle.
Yes.
The formulation is not there. Suppose after identification, there will be formulation, then it comes. But I can't see there.
The second stage, you are talking about the second cycle.
Don't see formulation.
In this cycle, Fubi, are we together now?
Yes, I'm there.
Yes. So can we understand your question properly?
I was saying, because you explained after you talk something about the formulation, but I can't see the formulation in the cycle. It's not there.
Are you seeing the what I'm sharing with you on the screen now?
Yes, I'm seeing.
Uh-huh. So you realize it has got these stages that we have. That the second model of the project cycle that I've given you has got what we call identification as the first one. That for us to do any project cycle as project managers, we need to identify. And in the identification, 4 things happen. In the identification, 4 things are happening. And in these 4 things that are happening in the identification, we have one that in the identification, after identification, there is what we call formulation that takes place. And what are you formulating? You are formulating the ideas. What are you formulating? You are agreeing on issues. And in this formulation, we are saying 4 things happen in the formulation. Outline, design. In the outline design, we are saying collect all the problems that you have. I gave you an example of a house whereby everybody wants to eat different food on this day. So we come together and we understand each other and we have that outline design. So when you have all that basket full of things, you come to appraisal. And what are you appraising? You are appraising what has happened, what has taken place. That all these issues that you have here, you start appraising them. We start giving them value, each of them. You give them value. And as you give them value, you abandon what is not needed. As you abandon, then you come up with a detailed design. So all these 4 activities here take place in the formulation stage. And that's why we are saying the second stage in the second model is formulation. It is outside here. Outside here of the formulation, but inside here after identification, you go through these 4 things that makes you formulate the right project cycle. Are you together for me?
Yeah.
Oh. Any question, ladies and gentlemen? If there is no question, I want to say, yes, Lasso. Richard. Yes.
Thank you so much for this class. I just want to find out there is something in project which make partners, to fit the project. In what stage here, as you have given these two stages, these two project cycle.
Yes.
So we see stage make partners to fit the project or to live supporting the project.
So Richard is asking a simple question, that if you look at the two project cycle models that we have shared, he's asking me a question that if I look at it with my experience, at what point do you find that 2-3 people came together to start a project and then they end up leaving? Richard, it is still on the project cycle. Why am I saying the project cycle? I cannot say which stage, but most of the stages, most of the specific stage I can give you that brings the difference and makes people to even quit the project is the implementation stage. Because we can always write the proposals. We can have good, perfect proposals. They can be funded with millions and millions of dollars. But when it comes to managing the project, whereby we have done our identification, whereby we have done our design, between the design and implementation and monitoring. Design, implementation, and monitoring. That's where most of us, partners in the organization, we have issues. Number one, we have a project, like let's say I can give a project of Richard, Emmanuel, Katushabe, and Neula, Fubi, and Florence. All of us, we come together and we are in this project. In this project, when it starts, we are all happy, we have got donations. Fine. But what is our challenge here? Our challenge comes when all of us now start looking for money. And then we realize Lillian was the treasurer. But Katusame is also saying that Lillian was the treasurer. Florence is saying that I participated, you used my idea. I also need. Imagine, Lillian is not a treasurer for Lillian. Lillian is a treasurer for the organization. And Lillian, what Lillian will say that Lillian wants to know that the money is spent rightly. So in this point of implementation, mostly, if you ask me, Richard, it is mostly at the point of implementation that if we do not have a shared goal, a shared vision, then we start disintegrating from the project. So when the project was being done, we were together, but some of us had got different initiatives, different needs in the project. So when it comes to the implementation, now that we are buying cars, now that we are going to the community, so you realize somebody like Ronald also said, I also need my share. So in that part of implementation, it is not easy. It has always made many partners of organizations, community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, businesses, projects to separate. Reason is, this person need is this, not this. And that is the challenge. Any question?
Oh, yes. Thank you, sir. Thanks for that explanation.
You're welcome, Richard.
There was a time from my community, some of the youth came up with a project proposal, and they were actually funded with a huge amount of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, they could not finish the project to the expected level. They end up with fighting. So from your explanation,
yes,
I have understood that really they have started owning the project resources. Of course, the leader or the director was claiming to own the funds, yet he is not the treasurer or the finance officer. You know, that's why that is where the problem comes in. Mm.
So you realize most of the challenge come when we have received the money, and after receiving the money, we have to go out and work. The thing is, the remedy I can give you, ladies and gentlemen, you are all going outside to manage projects at your respective places, or you are going out to manage projects at your site. When you think of having a project of a group of people, you as a leader, between you and me, there's nothing or there's no benefit of you having a group of powerful people so that your project can go on. And all of you have got different needs for the project. So as you go and come together and you think of coming with a project for a group of people, ladies and gentlemen in this group, I want to tell you, make sure that all of us have got one standing need or reason for the project to take place. We must make sure that everybody in the organization or everybody in this project understands the vision, the mission, and the philosophy of this project. Why are we doing this project? If you are after serving the community members and the other person is after getting money from the donors, we are not going to be at par. So it is very, very important for you, me and you as social scientists, in any group that you're going to join, that you're coming together to design on a project, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you don't sign for you to be a member if you see one person or the other person is not in the same line with the reason why we're having this. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to manage this and close this today, that a project is the recognition of the project process. A project cycle is the recognition of the project process. Do you understand? Do you recognize? When I see this, can I say that that is implementation stage? Can I say that that is evaluation stage? Can I say, if you understand what takes place in each stage, and you understand the characteristics of each stage, and you understand the advantages and the disadvantages of each stage, and you understand the requirement of each stage of the project cycle, then you're in a better position to move the project. And with that, I want to tell you, no matter the type of the project cycle or the model of the project cycle you want to follow, the basics are, you must have needs assessment or identification, you must plan properly for the project, you must implement the project, you must come in and monitor your implementation, and possibly review what you are doing and evaluate the project. And the only thing that will make you a difference between studying this course of project cycle management and other person who has just studied it is the fact that you stand elevated, that whenever you evaluate the project, whenever you evaluate the project, you use the same data of evaluation report to start a new project. The evaluation report gives you the next needs assessment. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good day and enjoy your holiday. One thing I've done is I've recorded the video in a different machine. I'm going to try to edit it and then I will send for you the link. It will be on my YouTube channel, but this is what I have. I'm going to help you with that, and may God bless you. Have a good day, ladies and gentlemen.